I guess we often start by, well, I guess we introduce ourselves and then we suggest topics for the agenda. Do you want to go first?
There's two of us you're speaking to. Which one are you speaking to?
I'm talking to you, Victoria.
Okay. Hi, I'm Quiet One, and I really do try. I chose the name because I really have to remind myself to be quiet because I'm very opinionated.
That is something I didn't know about you.
There you go. Um, and I think my grade is the bee's knees. I think it's the best component. And when I don't work on it, I feel sad, and I'm away from it for a while. Yes. That's all.
Okay. I'm Benji Fisher. My
Mm.
username is just my real name strung together all lowercase. And I'm one of the other Migrate maintainers. Um, and, for I've been a maintainer for a few years now, and sometimes I've had jobs that give me migration tasks and sometimes not. But right now I'm in the middle of a big migration task as Harvard University has thousands of sites on Drupal 7 distribution. And we're currently migrating about 80 sites in a 2 week sprint, and pretty soon we'll be going up to 100. And I think we need to get to about 150 or 200 in a 2 week sprint in order to hit some sort of goal. Unfortunately, we're yeah, end of life for Drupal 7 is not a reasonable deadline for us.
Did you
Dan,
say Harvard? Sorry, did you say Harvard?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Hi there, I'm Dan Davis Boxleitner. I work for Palantir.net. About 2 years ago, I started looking for a place in the Drupal ecosystem to get involved with collaborating and trying to contribute back. So I'm here working to try and do that in migration, although it is presenting a challenge because I'm not getting paid time to do that work right now. So I'm just trying to make it fit. There have been opportunities in the past where we worked on paid time for contributions, but I just don't have that budget currently. But anyhow, I like migrations because I've run many of them. I guess I did my first migration in D7, and I just think it's a huge utility for what people expect of you to build a website. To take their data from an existing system and bring it in is like so important, so valuable. Yeah. So maybe, one day I'll get closer to maintainer-like behaviors, but for now, I'm just trying to help as a developer where I can.
Yep, that's how we all got started, I think. I think a couple of years ago, I decided that I was in a position to negotiate when starting a new job that I should have a certain number of hours of paid time to contribute to Drupal. But
Mm.
um, but I still put in a lot of my own time, and and until a few years ago, it was entirely my own time that I was putting in. So, what do we have to talk about today?
Oh, I had no set things in mind. I was just going to mention the deprecation stuff.
Yep.
And I guess I'll do it now because it's short. The issues are sitting there. I know I have to work on them a bit, and it's coming. It's just there's other stuff in the way. I imagine next year is going to be full out trying to do that. Um, Actually, a thing to discuss is where is it? Converting to attributes. We should discuss that, I think.
Okay.
And I think because we have someone from Palantir, we should discuss. There's the issue about Drupal in a post D7 world, something. I can't find it. But we're deprecating two of them, right? But migrate is staying. But there's still ongoing discussions about whether migrate should stay in core or not, and we probably should do that now that we have Dave here. Or is it Dan? I can't read my screen, sorry. My old eyes. Dan!
Yeah,
Now that Dan.
Dan, I don't know how valuable I am in that discussion, but I could certainly try to contribute.
Well, yeah. The more voices, the better. Other than that, I would do a triage of the queue, but with what time we have. That's my contributions for ideas.
Okay. And Mauricio has joined us, Dinar Khan.
Oh, yes.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for coming.
Sorry.
Uh,
Excuse me. I'm going to be away a bit.
okay, for Mauricio, for the sake of the recording, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Mauricio Inarte from Nicaragua. Been doing Drupal migrations for the past 7 years. I wrote a series of articles slash book about that in 2019, and I'm writing a second one at the moment on upgrading from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10/11.
Yeah, so I think the original series of blog posts, the 31 Days of Migrations, were sort of aimed at my custom migrations for importing random sources into Drupal. And the one you're working on now, which I think is sponsored by Tag One, is more focused on migrating Drupal 7 sites into modern Drupal. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to look at your recent articles, but we certainly appreciate the effort. And Mauricio, is there anything you want to add to or suggest for the agenda? Things we should talk about today?
The only thing that comes to mind is a topic I brought up a few minutes ago about moving the shared configuration from Migrate tools to Migrate Plus, but I think that is core. I mean, that is contrib. I think this is most core migration work, so I guess no. Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly support you on that. That you did say the shared configuration.
Yes, yes. I can look for the issue,
Yeah.
but it is about that. Yes.
Um, so let's talk about the deprecation first. Um, and then maybe the place of migrate in a post D7 world. So I'm in the same position as you, Quiet One, that I know the issues are out there, and I just having trouble finding time to work on them.
Yeah.
But I also remember the last time I did look at it. There was some question about where to start. Go ahead.
No, go. Keep going. Keep going.
So let's see. I'm just trying to remember what I thought might be a good place to start.
Well, migrate Drupal UI will be the easy one to do. Excuse me.
Right, because nothing depends on it.
And then for migrate Drupal, the hardest one is source plugins, but the field ones and the process plugins are just grunt work. There's just no way around it. It's just grunt work. And I thought I'd start with the grunt work, really. The destination ones, they probably all stay. because they'll be needed for anybody trying to bring in stuff. So I can't think of any that would be changed and stuff. The only quirky thing I keep thinking about is there's a lot of the process plugins. I'm assuming that the process plugins are specific to a D67 migration and that they're not needed. So whatever process plugins may be in the comment module, not comment, yeah, comment module, for example, they probably aren't needed anymore. And that's where the information from people who actually do real world migrations would be useful. Are any of those process plugins useful that we should keep? That's something I can't answer.
Right. I can think of one, and it's I think the menu link plugin,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
that does some processing on the uh, on the route and saves it as a Drupal route if possible, rather than sort of a bare URL.
Okay.
But yeah, of course, we'll be keeping the general purpose process plugins that are in the migrate module itself,
Yep.
but for the process plugins scattered through all the other core modules, I think that's the only one I've ever used.
Okay. All right. I made a note on paper, so when I get to writing up the issue, I can get that into the issue summary when I split that one out for the process plugins.
Speaking of the topic of process plugins, I think that some of the guides were moved around, right? About process plugins. It looks like the documentation, I mean, it has been moved around.
Yeah, I
What's the
sort of get notifications when people edit those pages, but I haven't. So I've seen the notifications, but I haven't paid much attention to them. But I think when we first added those pages, we had a page for the module for the process plugins in the migrate module, and then a page for process plugins from other core modules, and then a page for migrate plus, and maybe a page for other contrib. And I think that the people who've been working on it lately have decided that breaking it up that way isn't helpful. And so they consolidated it all into one page. Is that what happened?
I think that is what happened. Yes, and I was a little bit confused when I first stumbled into it, but I guess it makes sense to have everything in one page. I was just not expecting it to be everything in one page. And mostly just for reference, those used to be bookmarks in my browser because I basically visit those pages every day. And when my bookmarks either didn't work or had different
yeah?
content, I was very confused. But but after reading thing, it makes sense now.
The
They,
the maintaining the links for the Drupal handbook pages is not necessarily easy to set up all the redirects.
and looking at it now, it seems to me they've kept that organization. They've just put it all on one page with a section for each of the things that I mentioned rather than separate pages. So that doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah, I haven't looked at those pages in ages.
Is that this is probably a joke or really like that, but is that because you know them by heart? I need to
Me?
look at them every day. Yes.
I'm unique because I actually don't work on real sites. I only work on core. So I have a very limited and unique perspective on things. So it's not about when I did some real world migrations, yes, I did use them and use those pages more than the other modules, but I prefer the less stress environment I'm in now.
Okay.
So I generally just open up the process plugins in my text editor when I need to review them. So I don't use those links much.
Yeah, going to the code is
Okay.
always good. I can't find those links for the life of me. I'm looking at the documentation. Isn't that interesting? I must be looking in the wrong place.
Mauricio posted a link in the Zoom chat.
Oh, is it there? Okay.
So, thinking about a place to start on the deprecation, what do you think of moving the content entity source plugin from the migrate Drupal module to the migrate module?
Oh, that's a good point. Yes, we could do that now. Yes. Yeah,
And
I should
yeah,
make a note.
I think I'd kind of like to start with that.
Okay. Uh, I keep forgetting about that one. And there is the config one. Is that in Migrate or Migrate Plus?
Oh, is there also a config source plugin?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also in Migrate Drupal.
And there's an issue which I always remember because in the title is Beef Up, written by Lucas. Beef Up plugin. It just sticks in my head. All right, I'm looking. Content entity, driver, empty. No, no, it's not. It must be in Migrate. But yeah, it does need help, that plugin. But that's outside of. Oh, it's not there either. Okay, I'm confused. Empty. Oh, it's because you're right. It's in Migrate Drupal, but it's in directory D8, which I forgot about. It's in a funny place. Yeah.
I think I found it.
Yes. Yeah, it's in Migrate Drupal source. Um, plugin migrate source D8 config. Yes, and it is a D8 plugin or D8 plus. So yeah, we should move that to migrate. All right. So that's 2 to move.
And that will make Migrate Drupal a little bit smaller, so it'll be a little bit easier to move it or deprecate it, remove it.
Remove it. That's right. We're just removing it. We're not putting it anywhere else. If Contrib wants it, they're going to have to do it themselves, which is interesting.
Okay, and that's as much as I wanted to talk about is what's a good place to start.
Yep, that
And
sounds. Yep.
and I think that I would like to do that. Um, how about migrate in a post V7 world, which yeah, community support ends in a few months, but much to everyone's surprise, Hero Devs and Tag One and Drop Solid, and possibly others since the last time I checked, have now signed on with the Drupal Association as long-term support providers for Drupal 7. So there may never be a post-Drupal 7 world. And and we might be in business for a long, long time.
I have a question about it's tangentially related, and if maybe we can table it for later, but I will post it now.
Sure.
I never understood. about what the end of line meant for like packaging of Drupal 7 projects. Let's say that next year after the official end of life, I am working on a Drupal 7 to 11 migration, and I need to download a module from like a Drupal 7 module, like DL token. Will that work? I think that they are supposed to not allow packaging or infrastructure that Drush uses to reference like releases and download them. I guess that's my main concern. Like, yeah, the code is going to be there, but like we'll have tooling around that code to get it.
I'm pretty sure that the packaging for Drupal core will not support Drupal 7. I'm not sure about contrib modules, but I suspect that they will not be packaged by Drupal.org anymore. So I think that you're going to need to come up with some other tooling. Now, if Tag One and others are planning to provide long-term support, and we know they are, um, I'm sure they'll come up with something. But that's sort of out of my hands.
Yeah. And mostly like I am speaking from like a developer doing a migration. I will at the very least in Drupal 7 download operating status and run the module to get a report. But if I am not able to download the module at all, then
Uh, yeah. I don't know the specifics, but it's not going to go away
okay.
quite. That it's not going to go away immediately. That would.
I mean, you can still git clone dash dash depth equals 1.
Mhm.
Um, are there important things in the package? I guess you'll have to update the .info file. I think that's one thing that's handled by packaging. I don't think there's too much more that you have to do. I can't think of any other steps you have to do.
This sounds like a good question for infrastructure or something, doesn't it? For the
I
Drupal infrastructure channel.
mhm. Yeah, I
And
try
I haven't
to
noticed questions like that in my wanderings around Slack, so I can't point you to anything either.
okay. I'll try to formulate it better and put it there because I am honestly like that. That is my day to day. So if I am not able to quickly like Drush DL 100, packages
Yeah,
in one command, then okay, I need to find another route. But yeah, it's true. This is mostly an infrastructure question, and I can ask that as well.
Yeah, so I'm also pretty sure that the repositories will continue to be available.
mm,
It's just the packaging that's going away. I suppose I should look up the end of life announcement and see whether it confirms what I'm pretty sure of. So what do you think is with long-term support from at least 3 providers, at least one of whom also offers migration services? Um, are our dreams of a post D7 world just never going to happen? Are
well, but even from a core, if sorry, but if core is no longer supporting that, migrating from Drupal, legacy Drupal, what's the purpose of migrate in core? Is it something that needs to be in core, or should it move to contrib? And there's various arguments, which I have not fresh in my mind, but there are arguments both ways for them.
I think it should be in core because all sorts of other sources can be used. Um, you know, for any sort of content import that's more complicated than the feeds module can support. Migrate module is the tool of choice. So I think it's important for a system to provide a way to import data and to export data. We have the JSON API module for exporting data. I think we should continue to have the Migrate API for importing data into Drupal.
I like that argument. Do you think that provides strategic advantage to Drupal to have it in core as a product?
Yeah, I'm less confident of that aspect of things. Like, you should never rely on my opinion when it comes to business decisions. But there is at least some argument that if we make it easy to import your data from WordPress or Sitecore or Squarespace, then that's a strategic advantage for Drupal.
So in that sense, the ecosystem would be that core provides migrate, but then there's modules to migrate a contrib module to migrate Squarespace or migrate some other system. Yeah, add in contrib. Okay.
Right.
In the same way that legacy Drupal would be in contrib if somebody does it. Okay.
Yeah, a source for importing raw HTML pages without any deeper structure. A source for CSV files. So a lot of this is already in Migrate Plus. Source for JSON, source for XML.
Are you saying they should be in core?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, currently they're not. And I think that as a practical matter, we're not going to be encouraged to bring in a bunch of things that are currently in Migrate Plus into core. I wouldn't mind having more sources in the core module.
Can I revisit one of I think that having the core API in Drupal core makes sense. I think that there are so many like CMSs or possible sources out there that having everything in core would be unpractical to some extent. But there is one source plugin that I think it's very helpful and was considered at some point, and it was the CSV source plugin. The issue at the end was closed as one fix for different reasons, but like if there were one source plugin to bring into core, that would be my first one of choice. But the reason why I bring this up is this a conversation that is like concluded? Is there a chance to revisit it in a post like now that we don't support migrating from previous version of Drupal? Maybe we have the time and resources to support CSV sources.
As I recall, the CSV source requires a dependency on something.
Right. PHP link package, yes.
Yeah. With my release manager hat on, I dislike dependencies. They can be a source of problems. Not saying that one is, of course, but it's yet another thing that can go wonky. It's yet another thing that's out there that some developer who creates that thing could muck up and cause problems. But that's just with my release manager hat on. That's there's other considerations.
So another option is that we can jump on the Starshot bandwagon. Uh, like maybe we should start putting together some recipes
All
that
right. That, yeah.
that
Or
bundle some contrib modules and some configuration and say, here, push this button, and you can import CSV files into whatever you want.
Yeah, that would, yeah. Yeah, that's a better approach, isn't it? Yeah.
what do you think about the AI connectors to automatically migrate content?
Ah,
When I saw that, I was very like confused, puzzled, surprised.
right. Well, one, don't believe everything you see in a demo. Two, don't trust my opinion on artificial intelligence because I don't really know it well enough. I tend to be skeptical of it. Um, but that's something that's worth some study, which I have not done.
And in the case of recipes, if recipes are mostly configuration, default content, and possible some config actions, what would a migration recipe look like? Would you mean like migrate plus config entities, like migration entities as configuration?
That's certainly an option. Yeah, I guess we don't have the option of having raw YAML files representing core migrations in a recipe. Um, we could have a separate mi migrate examples module that has a bunch of starter migration YAML files, and then a recipe could pull that in. But yeah, if we're working with Migrate Plus, then the actual migrations themselves could be stored in the recipe as configuration. That's entirely possible.
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? Migrations are so unique, each one, to try and make a. Just, yeah. Never mind, my mind's drifting. Um, so why don't we just leave it at that? That we should do some consideration and research a bit into if recipes are appropriate to
Okay.
explore them.
And yeah, I think that um, it would take a few. Yeah, I'm sorry. Having just said yes, let's drop the topic. I now want to say a little bit more. I'm sorry, but um, we're the migration experts. We know that there's the Migrate Plus module. We know that there's the Migrate Source UI module. We know there's the Migrate Source CSV module. Uh, but most people aren't aware of all of these. And if we bundle those three modules into a recipe, I think people might be pretty impressed at how easy it is to import a CSV file into their Drupal site.
Yeah,
I,
that's probably the place to start too with CSV.
yeah, just sort of picking up on the one thing that Mauricio
Mm,
suggested that we try to get into core. Well, getting things into core is sort of not the
yeah,
fashionable thing to do anymore. So that's why I suggest putting it in a recipe.
yeah. Cool. Oh, we're doing well. What else is on the agenda? What else did we say? I think it was just do triage if we had time.
I guess so. We have a little more than 15 minutes left. So I know a few years ago, we were talking about a JSON API
Mm-hmm.
source plugin.
Yep.
Um, and I think someone has recently written one. It would not be appropriate for core because it relies on the structure provided by the Migrate Plus module. And I haven't looked at the code, but there is now a contrib module to use JSON API as the source. And at the very least, what I think it provides is that it handles the pagination for you.
Oh.
That
Oh.
part of the JSON API standard is that it gives you these next and previous links. And so you as a developer don't have to worry about that. It's handled for you by the source
Yeah.
plugin. So that's a good thing.
Well,
And
there's an argument there. Sorry to speak over you. Would you like me to stop?
go ahead.
The argument for putting JSON in would be that we have JSON coming in. We should be able to do JSON both ways into core,
Absolutely.
in and out. So that would be the argument. I remember working on that issue for the JSON and working with the next page and all that kind of stuff. And I think it just got hung up on the dependency, I think, that was coming in, that it was considering. It just sort of fizzled out.
I never figured out how to get the fixtures for testing.
Okay. So
And then I got distracted by other things.
but we have a working model in Contrib for this, right? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying? Okay.
And Mauricio just posted something in Slack. Is that related to this?
So the question is, we need to get consensus from, I would say, the committers, like the community. Do we want this in core before we deep dive into that?
Again, that's not the direction things are moving.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think getting it into a recipe is more likely. And
Right.
part of it is what you said earlier about with your release manager hat on. We don't want to bring more things into core that have additional dependencies.
Yeah. Yeah. They
Um,
have to, well, but of course you can. You just have to justify it. And for all we know, these are very stable. I mean, a JSON. You would think and hope that a JSON dependency would be very stable. It's not doing anything funky, particularly, is it? Or scary, or so.
right. Mauricio is posting a bunch of the links from the Zoom chat into the Slack. Thank you. That's a little
That's
more
helpful, yes.
convenient.
Something I don't know if related, but also like I guess it is somewhat related to post Drupal 7 world, I guess. Now that recipes are in core and part of the importer of the default content module was also added to Drupal core, it looks like we have two systems to import in content. The new API from that was copied over from default content and the Migrate API, not necessarily the same, but are there any considerations or conversations happening between the two teams about having two content importers into core?
I don't know. And
Um, yeah, I'm not aware of the conversations about that, but I wasn't heavily involved in all the recipe stuff. Anything related to that, I stayed in the background.
I guess to like getting back to the conversation that we that we said we were not going to talk more anymore, but if migrate is ever taken out of core, like the whole API, even the core API,
Hmm.
I guess there will be at least one other way to import content, at least default content that is
Right.
supported in core.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm posting a link in Zoom and in Slack to the JSON API source.
Thank you.
I guess
Um,
it's migration JSON API because migrate JSON API is already claimed by someone else.
I had one item to mention about that. I did a migration from JSON recently, and I think there's a tricky bit in that the pagination controls are kind of like different for different sources. I'm trying to
Oh,
think of the best way to articulate that. It's very hard to make a general set of rules that could read from any JSON API source. Like some do their pagination as part of the JSON. There just seemed to be, it wasn't like a one size fits all circumstance there. So
okay.
there's some trickiness around getting the pagination to work for different sources.
Oh, I do like a world with standards that people follow.
So just getting back to the question of artificial intelligence in Drupal. So I was at DrupalCon Barcelona and I saw the Dries note. Um, and he, he very briefly went over the use of the AI for migration. Did not go into any detail at all, but went into a little more detail about sort of an AI assistant that's being built into, I think, into Drupal core. Um, and it's done in, I think, a very reasonable way. As I said earlier, I'm kind of skeptical of over promising from AI, but it looks as though the AI is sort of on the front end for parsing whatever you type into it, and then it comes up with something sort of structured and passes that to some sort of back end, which does something predictable and and presumably reasonably well thought out. Um, so if they're using a sort of similar approach for this um, migration, AI assisted migration, then maybe it's not as terrible as you might fear.
What I heard described was using some sort of an AI to manage config files. So then you could do things like say a sentence and have it turn into a view. So you could say like, build me a view with these filters and something, and maybe a similar approach for other site building tasks where you would just type in a line of text and then it would do the creating for you by manipulating config files.
Yeah, I think that's part of what it can do, and there's sort of a back end that works on config after the AI in the front end parses what you've written and tells it what to do. And I think the specific example that was shown in the Dries note was, first of all, can you change the label of this field from article to news or whatever it was, and that's of course in configuration, and it was able to do that. And can you add a taxonomy field with different wine regions? And that was maybe a little more dangerous. So it was, I don't know where it got its list of wine regions, presumably basically doing a Google query on it or whatever is built into the LLM it was based on. Um, but the part about creating the taxonomy is more structured, and that's also manipulating config, just as you describe.
And do you know if the part about importing content from the other website was using, like, I know it was using AI, but like the AI itself was using the Migrate API under the hood?
I have no idea. I kind of doubt it, but I don't know.
I would
Because if not,
guess
yeah.
I would guess it's just capable of generating the config files. I don't know that it would be any more sophisticated than that. Like, I think they keep it pretty simple.
I might be recalling it correctly, but I think at some point they asked the AI to the assistant to import content from the other website, and it did. But how it did it under the hood, I have no idea.
So without access to the database, which I don't see how they could do that, um, it my guess is that what it's doing is crawling the site you point it to and extracting HTML markup and dumping that into body fields. That's that seems feasible. Um, I don't know if it does any more than that.
That's a good point. Like, there's no way to have database credential. I think they said in the demo that, oh, I identified this on an image and I put it in the image field. So it is a little bit more sophisticated than just dumping into a rich text field. But yeah, I guess it is crawling the website and pulling content by parsing HTML. Cool. Cool. Well, they claim that it was working code, so maybe we can, if it is open source, we can have a look at it.
So having used up most of the time, quiet one, would you still like to spend a few minutes doing triage?
Actually, I recall there was something else I mentioned.
Oh,
I've forgotten it. The converting the source plugins to attributes.
oh yes, yes.
Um, I haven't looked at this issue in a while, but I do think it would be helpful if we kept an eye on it and reviewed it and stuff and kept it moving. It's just very even though it's priority normal, it really should be critical or something because it has to get done. And the person who's been working on it, who I don't know, Godot is late.
Mm-hmm.
It took it in a different direction, and I paused then and kind of never got back to really follow what they were doing. But I see it needs work. So, um, and I don't think a commit. Oh no, Lee's looked at it once a while back, and so has Ketch. Well, that's good. It hasn't had a lot of input, which makes me worried if it's going to take a long time to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm saying I think we should. Oh, Lee's done more reviews than I thought. I don't know. Should start shepherding it a bit, keeping an eye on it, and making sure it's going in the right direction, etc., etc. The there's a lot of effort being put into the package manager stuff, so there's resources are a bit thin at the moment. So anything we can do to help that would be good. I think that's what I wanted to say anyway. because I don't.
Yeah, I did one review of that, or maybe it was a previous issue. Um, and I do remember that there's some reason why it's more complicated than
Yeah.
other seemingly similar
Yes.
issues. Oh, my assistant is here.
And one of them is that the IATN query trade's in the wrong place, and that had to move. And I just have lost the plot on the sequence of events here. What has to happen first? So, and they move the source module thing as well from migrate Drupal to migrate, or the other way around, from migrate to migrate Drupal as well. I think that's in there as well. And so right now I'm kind of feeling it's in the too hard basket, which is going to just make it delay and delay and delay. Unless we say, oh, hey guys, we've sorted all this out. I don't know. That one worries me, put it that way.
Okay. Well, then let's not kick it down the road. Let's
Yeah.
try to make some progress on it.
Yeah. I think it needs slow and steady progress. And, yeah. That's all I really needed to say.
Okay.
And that brings us to 10:59 by my clock. 1 minute to the hour. How's that? No matter where you are. Oh no, you might be in a time zone that does half hour. God.
Yeah, a 30 or 45 degree minutes delay offset.
Sometimes I wish we'd just get rid of time zones and have one time zone.
There's recently an agreement about what to do on the moon, right?
Oh no, really? What's that?
I don't know what they decided. I suspect that it's UTC, but some international agreement was reached, I think. It was in the
Good on
news a
them.
couple of weeks ago.
Well, I'm glad we had these important things sorted out.
Well, thank you everyone for coming to the meeting. I hope it was productive. I think we definitely got some ideas out of it.
Yes.
And who knows? I have a 3-day weekend coming up. Maybe I can either look at the annotations issue or start work on a recipe, or possibly even both.
All right. Well, enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And we'll have the regular Slack meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Kia ora.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.